You sure?
Yep, it's on.
All right, that was a smooth beginning.
I'm sorry, that was a pretty
Good
weird
evening.
thing. We'll cut that off at the beginning. I'm sorry, folks.
Good evening, and welcome to the shop here in beautiful downtown Canterbury, where it's pitch black, but our hearts are bright, and it's bright in the shop, and just glad you're here to visit with us for a little while. It's been a wild week. It's been a busy week around here. We've been getting ready for kids to come home and visit, and Tuesday night we had the 4th session of our jewelry box course, and thank you all for those of you who are part of that. It's been a great experience, and we're going to bring it on home this coming Tuesday. It's never too late to be part of that course. If you want to know more about the courses, and that one in particular, you can head over to epicwoodworking.com. And of course, if you like this content, please subscribe and like and share, and throw me a comment too. I always try to respond to those. So sorry if I have been a little slow with it lately, but I have been reading them from last week. Last week we talked about building the countertop, the new countertop for the kitchen. I'm going to show you where I'm at with that. I didn't get as much done as I wanted to this week, but I got a lot of other things.
So, lots of other things have come.
Anyway, I'm going to show you a key critical cut in that, and hopefully I don't screw it up live in the shop.
You're so
on
brave
Shop
to do
Not
that.
Live. But what I want to tell you about tonight is in the description, my experience with doing time in the prison. And I have spent quite a while in the prison with my good friend Terry Moore. Shout out to Terry if you're watching, Terry.
Yes, hey, Terry.
We started going in there, actually, Terry before me, in I think it was 1999. So
Wow.
quite a while ago. And I heard about it through my interaction with the New Hampshire Furniture Masters Association. A Superior Court judge reached out to our furniture making group and suggested that what if we went into the prison? They had an established hobbycraft program where they had a woodworking shop, pretty busy shop, and they had other crafts in there in side rooms, but the woodworking is the main thing. And they said, would you go in there and give some seminars, and it would probably inspire the guys to do better work or whatever and just enjoy the process. So Terry had started doing that, and when I heard about it, I don't know, I just got curious. I'd never been in a prison, and I thought, hey, I'd like to go in there with you. He said, sure, come on in. So I went in. I thought I was playing it pretty cool, but they told me later I seemed a little nervous. But wow, it was quite an experience. You know, you go through all the buzzing and clanging big doors behind you, a series of gates and security barriers, you know, one after another. I think you go through 4 or 5, you got to get buzzed through these doors just to get into the prison. And then you're in this courtyard, and we walk across to the hobbycraft program, which is, you know, it's above a gymnasium, so it's part of the activities of the prison. So we went in there, and we started giving these seminars. And I remember one time we had to walk through the gymnasium up to the hobbycraft, which was unusual because we couldn't go the other way around. And it was during the Christmas season. And I was shocked to see what they had set up in there, like down in one corner. They had this like stage set up, and they had a Christmas show. And one time we walked through there when it was getting started. And one element of prison you don't think of much and don't see that much is how, you know, it affects a lot of people. A lot of people are hurt by the repercussions of crime, but one of the big things that is hurt are the families and the children. So at Christmas time, they allowed the inmates who were, on the better behaved pattern to be part of building a Christmas show out of, and one of the gifted carvers in the wood shop, this guy carved all these characters, and they acted out, and they were down under behind the thing, and they were like puppets, like marionettes sort of, and they did this awesome Christmas show, and the kids would sit out there like entranced. And I didn't see the show, but I got to know that guy who carved quite well, and he was, I made a lot of friends over the years. And anyway, he some years later, he gave me this guy, which he actually made in the prison. And I wanted to show you that. It's an old whaler, fully carved. I think it's basswood. And I remember when he was carving at his bench, I'd always be amused, like, to see what he was trying, He was like the Michelangelo of the prison workshop. And he even collaborated with the metal working department. I think the guy made him the lamp with the little whale punctured in there. So he's the whaler. He's got his little gaff right here. I don't think you could get a very big fish with that, but it doesn't matter. But check it out. I mean, it's so cool.
The coat.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So I've got this hanging around.
If you've been here for the Epic Weekend, he greeted you when you came into the shop.
Yeah, he's been hanging out over there.
So.
And some of you wondered what I did with my old clamps. I had a lot of old Jorgensen clamps and everything. Well, this guy, he's gotten out since. He came by one day and he got them. So I gave him those clamps. And he's, as far as I know, I haven't heard from him in a while. I hope he's doing all right. But anyway, lots of things happen in that shop. Monthly, we would go in and give a seminar and show how to, do various techniques. Not a lot different than Shop Night Live. It would be like showing some process and talking about, older techniques, a lot of 18th century aspects at the beginning to teach in shaker style furniture. And they started making, the guys who really wanted to get engaged with this, started to make some really nice furniture. So much so that they even got involved in our annual exhibits with the Furniture Masters. So we'd have all our pieces, the Furniture Masters group has about 20 members or so, and we would have an exhibit every summer with a catalog. And then there were at least a couple prison pieces. So the prison program got formalized underneath the Furniture Masters Association as the Prison Outreach Program. So Terry and I have been heading up the one in Concord for all these years and had a number of guest presenters go in there. I mean, you wouldn't believe it, like David Lamb, Garrett Hack, I don't want to forget anyone, Jerry Osgood, Ted Blatchley, countless.
John.
Huh?
Isn't John Siegel been in there?
Yeah, John Siegel's been in there. Lots of people. I know I'm going to forget some, but just amazing makers as part of giving demonstrations in there too. So it's been a long time. We've had a lot of great experiences. Even brought Tommy McDonald in there from the old Rough Cut show,
that's cool.
And we had a good time in there. He was great.
They liked him.
Yeah, he was great with the inmates. So anyway, I just wanted to show you some of the things that they've made and actually given me over the years. And I didn't realize how many things I have. I have a coat rack out there. I forgot to bring it out, but it's a Craftsman style coat rack. If you ever hang up your coat here, that was given to me. Of course, the old whaler. Look at this one. This is a paddle that I got hanging on the wall. And this guy used to make these, quite a few of them. He was cranking them out. So it's the Granite State. We got the Old Man in the Mountain down there in the New Hampshire up at the top. And you hang this, we get this hanging on our wall. This guy, I love this guy. When I first went in there, he was making these nets all the time. And he I think he got out just a couple, 3 years after we started going in. So he wasn't in there as long, but I mean, these guys he didn't get any help from us to make this. I thought, wow, that's awesome. And I used to go over and say, how did you do that now? So a lot of times I was learning things, with this laminate bending, and he's got a nice combination of maple and walnut layers. And this is a big one. He also gave me a smaller one. So I got this one in mind when I get out there on that fishing boat in the ocean and I get that big striper in there. I can't wait. This net has never touched the water. It's a sad shame. Then this other guy was amazing, Turner. He turned so many bowls and made so many gift bowls for the Furniture Masters to give away. And this one has a beautiful butterfly like cut into it. Bird's eye maple and cherry base.
Gorgeous.
Really sweet. And if you've ever been in our shop bathroom, this has been, you couldn't miss it.
On the toilet.
It's on the lid.
Not on, well, yes. On the,
And check this one out. This is over the top. This guy was so amusing. He loved to work with smaller detail. And I know some of you have seen these kinds of models of things, but look at this. I mean, it's crazy. It's an actual, scale replica of some type of earth mover, I think. Somebody must know the name of this truck, but he did it very accurately. So they had this swivel, and they also had this safety swivel. He explained to me, these carry such heavy loads that if they were riding and they got off balance and the load went over, it could go over without taking over the cab. So it would pivot on this knuckle point here. And he made it look at it, it's cherry, it's maple, and then even everything functions. I mean, look at these hydraulic pistons in bird's eye maple, Wow. And then he'd ebonize these wheels that he would make. He had some method for cutting these diagonally he would make those cuts across on the table saw. He had a little jig, and then he'd glue them together with that middle. Really clever, lots of angles involved here. And the way he combined woods, it's quite a feat. But I was floored when he gave me this. He made like backhoes, bulldozers, like to such accurate detail. It was mind-boggling. He used to be in that business, and so he had a lot of familiarity with them. And I believe he passed them on to his boss, who was in the business while he was in prison. He would just keep sending them out.
So
it was
cool.
Pretty cool, yeah. But here's an example of one of our catalogs, the Furniture Masters catalogs. You can check out the Furniture Masters work at FurnitureMasters.org. And all the makers I mentioned there, you won't believe the furniture you can see there. You can look at the gallery and all that. This was our auction our exhibit in 2002. So the program was already going pretty well then. This is kind of an example of one of the older catalogs. We had Windsor chair makers, Jeff Cooper, Wayne Marcoux, all these guys. There's Terry. Look at those demi-lunes. Pretty sweet.
nice.
And Jerry Osgood. I mean, unbelievable work every year. But look in the back, we had this special section for the emerging artists, and then the prison outreach program. Let me see here. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, there's some pictures of us in the prison. I don't know if you can see that, but this was when we had some Terry and me there, and then a bunch of the guys. This guy made the nets with the hat on, and this guy's still there.
There's a gentleman
know.
here who says he was a runner at that auction.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my
and
gosh.
He knows Eric.
In 2002? Wow, that's crazy.
That's a cool guy.
Yeah, so we've had a lot. This is a Queen Anne base that they were making. And these are the two key guys in the early years.
Here's Eric. Right?
Al and Eric. Yep. And then they contributed. You can see Alicia made this little drop leaf table, this federal style. And then this other guy who was involved for a while, Tim Eldridge, made this shaker clock, beautiful cherry, tall clock. And then Eric made this high boy. And there's the fan. This is the fan that I showed you not long ago. I showed that same lesson in the prison, and he took off on it, and he wanted to make that high boy, and he carved those fans right in that high boy.
Amazing.
Yeah, so pretty neat. It's just shocking to see the work come out of there, you know. And some people say to me, you know, they ask us all the time, like, aren't you a little nervous being in there? You know, because the typical night is being behind like a bench, smaller bench, like, and all around you, close in, are like probably 30 inmates around the bench, and you're doing a seminar. Just like, I mean, it wouldn't take much for you to imagine and feel like I was just talking to almost any woodworkers guild.
Which we will be doing in the spring.
That's right. But the only difference is when I go to a woodworkers guild, you're not all wearing the same thing.
And they don't walk in and out with you?
No. But anyway, they say, aren't you a little nervous being around there? Because we've got all our tools right there, you know, chisel and I go, actually, no. I mean, there's this really beautiful kind of appreciation that's unspoken, that I guess it is spoken sometimes, but the fact that you go into that space, I mean, there's so much emotionally charged energy in that space, you know, like it's just a hard place to be, to live. It's just otherworldly, right? And the fact that you go in there and share something you love, and then not only that, but it's something that is, it's life-giving in a way, because it inspires them to be bigger and make beautiful things. You know, it's like this creative joy that they get, you know, in portions of the day, but they're learning things, they're applying themselves, they're being productive, and they're feeling good about what they're making. And they also feel good about the exchange that we have. You know, it's a good coaching kind of exchange. And then after the seminar, Terry and I will spend half an hour to an hour, usually it's close to an hour, walking around and visiting with a bunch of the inmates. They're showing us what they're making. So it's a really kind of
Very
personal experience.
And
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't share this aspect, but when the judge set up this program, one of her thoughts was she wanted to have quality men going in and connecting with these guys so that they would have connections with, well,
You're right, I
people-
wouldn't share that.
people of, you know, because these gentlemen are coming back into the world, and they need to be productive and contributing citizens, and this gives them potential of a trade, you know, to do that. And that's happened over the 23 years for sure.
Yeah,
We get to see them.
it's been amazing. So
Pretty cool.
we've been really grateful for that. If you want to see more of that, there's actually an exhibit up right now at the gallery, the Furniture Masters Gallery on Main Street in Concord, New Hampshire. If you're in New Hampshire before January 6th, and I think it comes out 6th or 7th or something like that, you can go on our website, thefurnituremasters.org, and confirm those dates and the location if you want to check it out. It's just a small gallery, but there's probably at least a dozen pieces made by him, and they're beautiful, like pieces of furniture. And a lot of them have already sold, but some are still available. So get over there if you can.
Can you oblige me and tell that story of the young man that you found over by the scrap bin, looking for a blank to do a spoon? Remember that one?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of that story.
Well, maybe you.
I'm not ready to tell that story. Maybe another night. But I do have one story I want to tell.
Oh, good.
One time I went in there and, well, we were going and showing a lot of Queen Anne furniture making. And, there's a lot of sculptural things you're doing, you're shaping, all the things I've shown you, with the spoke shave and then the rasps. And I remember like rasping them. And at the time I had the Nicholson rasps, the 49 and 50, which I have now. And they get worn out, they start to get dull in mine world. And I just, in the course of doing it, I said, these are not cutting as beautifully as they do at the beginning, but whatever. And then I said, but you can see how nice a job they do and all that. And then I don't know if it was the next month we went in or whatever, they came over and they said, hey, we got something for you. And I'm what? And they give me a little box and I open it and it's 2 brand new Nicholson rasps,
Wow.
I'm like, oh, that's really nice. I'm like, and then I'm starting to think, well, how am I gonna get these out of here? And they go, oh, just stick them in your bag and take them out. And I'm like, is that all right? And the guy who ran the program oversaw it and said, yeah, that's fine. But it occurred to me, here I am sneaking files out of a prison. That was kind of weird. And then one night, while Terry and I were there together, which is almost every time, they gifted us each one of these Lee Nielsen smoothing planes. In fact, this Lee Nielsen smoothing plane. So, there's a lot of great memories. I mean, they were very generous with, they were allowed to make a little money on what they produce too, a portion of it. Of course, things sell dirt cheap for what they're doing, but they are allowed to do that to a small degree. So
Ron is bringing up a great point. There are so many young people and young adults incarcerated that there's a group of people that are listening to this. If there's an opportunity where you live to serve in some way, go in and reach out. It's incredible. John is also bringing up people with disabilities as well. This is a great way to serve, and people can do stuff with their hands, and it brings a lot of life. There's something else I wanted you to say.
we should talk before.
I did put a link to a short video about the program in the description. So if later you want to watch that, it just is a couple minutes and it tells you
Oh, right.
a little bit about Terry and Tom,
Yeah.
and some of the people that they work with and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So that's fun.
It's awesome.
Down memory lane. I know I'm forgetting to say something, but a lot of gratitude for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, with COVID, we haven't even been in since. We have not been in there for 2 full years.
Yeah.
Wait, no, 3.
But they're starting it up again.
Yeah, we're going back in soon. It's just been so crazy right now. I haven't reset it. All right, so hey, let's shift gears a little bit. I just want to revisit my in-process countertop project. Thank you all for the great comments.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember names on there. I'm sorry I can't remember them all, but all those comments about the types of finishes, your suggestions for the arrangement of the top, they were all great. I was really enjoying reading them. And one of them actually changed the way I'm going to do it. So, well, not really.
It's like winning a raffle.
Yeah, not really changed it, but just changed, not the overall idea, but let's go back. Like last week I drew this and I showed you this is the L and these are the dimensions. Our sink is here, 9 feet here. And I was talking about the joint, how I did not have an 11-footer. I only have a 10-footer. So I was gonna just have one joint here. And I had a 10-footer and I would put the joint somewhere back here. And I was gonna put it over here because this is all gonna be wood and I didn't wanna see a seam on the sink because this is gonna be an undermounted sink. So it's gonna be a nice wood edge with the sink under. And then across the front, I would have a 9-footer and I would miter that and then go back. And someone called that a mason's joint, which was pretty interesting to me. I did not know that, but it made sense. I've seen stairs kind of join that way. But gosh, I think if it was Todd or someone made the suggestion that, hey, why don't you just make your miter come up here, and rather than go this way with your dog bones pulling together and having the grain kind of go at a right angle, why don't you continue this way? So these will be longer right here. Okay, I'll have my miter here. So all the grain is running here. And then we'll have our dog bones actually here. Okay, so we'll just change this to that. When doing that, it eliminates the need for any seams along this back wall. Any seams at all, actually, except for edge-to-edge board. So now I'm going to have just this board coming down all the way. And I'll have that miter right in here. And it'll be nicely mitered with this board. So we'll have kind of a nice look right on the inside. And then the seam with the dog bones pulled there. So that's how I have recalibrated what I'm going to do. It's essentially the same thing, but I didn't even, I guess I was fixated on that going that way because that's sort of the way my plywood top is now. I have the long plywood going this way with a seam somewhere and then another seam at a right angle so the grain's running. But anyway, I like this and that's what we're going to do. I got this beautiful flame birch from our friends, as I mentioned, at Goose Bay Lumber. And I forgot to show you last week when I was going through the pile, one of the things that happens sometimes is you may have had this experience when you're flipping the boards. Now and then you see this unbelievable piece. And even though it doesn't really fit your project, you just gotta have it. And you want it to squirrel away for that special project. And maybe you just want to keep it and look at it every now and then. Well, check it out. This was one of those finds. I'm in the flame birch. And flame birch is not typically this wild. But look at how crazy that is. I shared this with the jewelry box course people because I'm actually making a jewelry box out of this. It was longer, but I've got my sides out of this and my front and back. It should be spectacular. And, but just amazing, wild flame. It's almost quilted. Just a sweet, beautiful board. And that's the kind of thing you find at Goose Bay. Have I mentioned that? So let me just show you that. I want to just show you the boards where I'm at. A couple tips on are things I've learned about ways of jointing and preparing long stock. Some of these are long and hard to deal with. And I've had some challenges which I didn't think I could overcome, but I think they're overcome. So let me show you those. And where's my, I'll just use these. So let's look over here at the wood I have here. I'm going to get my template and just show you a couple quick things about where I'm at. So here's my template, if you remember. I'm going to maybe hit you with this. So this is our long wall right here, our 11-foot wall down the inside edge. We're approximately just under 9 feet to this inside corner. And then from here over, I think it's like 65 inches or so that way. So this is where we're going to have that miter and over. The beautiful thing about these boards is I've got wide enough to make 3 boards across. And I'm able to cut one so that I can skip in the middle of the sink here and have it appear to continue on the other side. All right, so let me show you just a little bit of what it took to prepare. I'll just talk over and then joint an edge. And then I want to cut the miter. I'm really excited to cut the miter. And I think that's one of the harder aspects of this. But I'm going to kind of cheat because I have an amazing saw that I don't get to show enough. And I'm going to show it to you. It's kind of fun. All right. Okay, so come on over to the joiner. If you see, I've got this set up. And what I do when you're dealing with long wood, it's a good idea to, you got these long planks, boards. You're gonna, and you're working alone, you need some support for when it's coming out. So I've got this little wheeler, like a pedestal with rollers on it. And I like to set that in plane with the outfeed bed, okay? The outfeed table does not change in elevation on the joiner. You're only changing the infeed occasionally. So you want to set that up. So I've got this is a straight edge, and I just took this MDF and before I had that roller table there, I just clamped it to my table, flat down on my table. So now this edge is extended in plane with the top of my outfeed table, and I just gently raise this until it's just touching. So I don't want it higher or lower. If it's lower, it's not doing anything for me. If it's higher, it's going to raise it up and mess up the jointed edge. So you want to really dial that in. Now you can take that away and you're all set to joint long material without too much trouble. So let me just, as an example, I'll show you one of the long planks. I'll be right there. Hang on a second. I'm going to take this back. It's probably the heaviest one too.
You're getting a really good view of that corner of the shop.
Oh yeah, I should have cleaned up. Should have put that in the closet before you got here. All right. All right, so here it is. I've got my boardless. All right, pretty straight already. I already did this, but I wanted you to see it. I jointed an edge and then I ripped it. I'll show you the joining and then I'll talk about how the process I went through to flatten it. All right, here we go. All right, that's it. Easy peasy. Okay, so that's how I get the edges, and I'll shoot and joint all these edges where I'm going to have glue joints and make sure they're going together nicely and tightly. This is the back plank, but one of the things I ran into a challenge with on flattening these is that they're so long, they're not flat. You know, when you're getting boards, it's rare for you to find a flat one that you can joint flat on one face that's really long and not lose a lot of material. So on most projects, you never need material this long. Furniture, I mean, how many chests of drawers do you build that are this tall or wide? No, so you don't need that. So I'm laying things out rough, and we're chunking them up into shorter pieces and then we take those parts and begin to mill them. Because they're shorter, any kind of deflection in the board is much easier to correct without losing plank thickness. So you'll get a better yield if you chunk it up. However, in this case, I couldn't do that. So one of the things they do on figured woods, like this flame birch or curly maple, is very often they'll help you to see the quality of the figure better, because that's a big reason you're buying it. So they'll skim plane it at the lumber dealer, which they do at Goose Bay on this material. So it's 6/4 material, which you usually expect to be 1.5 inches plus. It could be a little thicker. So with most board measurements with lumber places, if it's 6/4, which is equal to 1.5 inches, it's just fancy language for that they come up with at the lumber mill. They talk in quarters when they're milling wood. So 6/4 is 1.5 inches. And with the 6/4, you're always expected to be able to get material after planing that's 1/4 inch less in thickness. So if you cut it shorter, you'll get a lot more than that. But so this, you'd expect that you would get a minimum of 1.25 inches of thickness with that after you dress it down. Most times you can get significantly more. But because this was skim planed, it was already down to 1 3/8 inches because they skimmed it on both sides. And when they skim plane it, they don't joint one side first. They just run it through the planer. So if it's got a little weirdness to it, the weirdness just gets skimmed. It doesn't flatten the weirdness, and you still got to deal with it. So now you're down in thickness, and you want to judiciously remove material so you don't lose too much. I didn't want to have a countertop less than 1.25 inches. You know, I'm thinking of it almost like a piece of granite, which the heavier, thicker stuff is right about 1.25 inches. It might be a touch less. So I think it'll look nicer too to have a little heavier edge. So what I found was with the long ones, usually you were dealing with a long bow, and one of them, my front piece, had a bow and it had a slight twist. So I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to get that out of there and only lose 1/8 of an inch. You know, it was just so much over the length. But one thing I learned from this is, well, I got two things going for me here. I don't have to worry as much about the underside. If it doesn't get completely planed, it's okay, because it's not going to be seen. I want to mainly flatten and get in appearance the face side. But for those bow type, almost always when you're flattening material on the joiner, you want to put the bow side, I don't know which side, the bow side up, I guess you would say, so that you're just taking a little off each end. So what I would do is run it and take some off one end, and then I turn it around and take it off the other. So I was taking a little bit off the inside of each. And the one that I had a little twist on, I would put pressure on the twist to just gradually take it out. And I measured, and once I got like to 1.25 inches on the ends, then I stopped. Even though I wasn't touching the middle quite yet. And it was really pretty close. So once I ran it through the planer, it started to look significantly flatter, even though it wasn't perfect on the bottom. And then because it's so long, there's some flex to it. And now that it's 1.25 inches, so it's going to lay flat, and it made it really nice and easy now to joint. So my key long pieces, I was able to prepare and feel pretty good about. So
Tom,
then
can
I
you
joined in.
talk about where and how much pressure you were putting, where you were applying the pressure when you were doing the joining,
Oh, okay. When you joint,
and how you were doing that?
I'll just do it without it turned on so I can talk. When you're starting, when you use a joiner, it's just like a huge hand plane upside down with the tape, but instead of the blade extending, the whole table drops down in the front. The outfeed table stays stationary, like I said. That's in plane with my roller. And the blades on the cylinder there, on the cutter head, those are aligned perfectly in plane with the outfeed table. So if I drop this front 1/8 of an inch, which is more than you want to do, if I start flat on this and I push right into that blade, it's going to take 1/8 of an inch off, because then as soon as it cuts, that freshly cut surface now lays flat on the outfeed table. So I'm coming in 1/8 inch wider than I'm going out, right? So usually you're just taking like a 32nd to a 16th of an inch, depending on the cut. So here, so when you start in to get a good cut, I'm focused on this being flat on the infeed table, and I'm holding it up in the middle back here. So then I've got one hand down on the table, and I'm thinking of it staying flat and against the fence, and I'm just kind of walking forward, moving forward, and I just want to keep going because I'm supporting with my hand. Now I'm on the table enough where I can start shifting. I'm still thinking about keeping it flat on this table because it's joining. Now this over here should be flat on that table, a little less width, and then I'm just going to keep pushing. Now I need the assistance out there because you start to cantilever out, and I'm trying to keep this end flat on this table. It's going to want to tip at some point, and that's where the roller helps. The roller takes over, see? Yeah, and then, but it's in plane with this table, so it's not lifting off my infeed table, and then I come out and I'm done. So I should have a good enough edge there to make it. All right, I'm gonna put this one back. So this is the arrangement.
Ready for me to come back over
Yep.
here?
I'm gonna do this quick. So this is the arrangement we have.
Could you use a feather board when you're working with a large board, Tom?
A feather board?
Yeah.
I don't usually feather board typically on a joiner. That's usually it's for the router or the table saw or the bandsaw. But you could, now that you mention it, if you were thinking of that to keep it flat against the fence, as I'm pushing, it just feels natural to hold it against the fence without any trouble. But you certainly could set that up. That would work. I've never had to do it though. So here's the way my boards are going to be arranged. You can see this is my front. So this is the nice, I like the color, and it's got some nice figure. And this is where I'm going to cut that miter. So this one ended up being about 8 3/8 across. Then this will be my second plank. This one was really funky and I wouldn't have been able to flatten it. It had a really big bow to it. So what I did was I cut it to rough length first, so it's a little over long. And then I was able to flatten a much shorter piece easily. Then I took the other end of it, and that's going to be out here. Whoa. And I'm going to glue it in something like this. And this will be the space roughly for where the sink's going to go. Okay, and this will be my back piece that'll get cut. So those will be glued up. Now, the sequence, let me show you here. I got to think about the sequence of making this now. I've got all these long planks. What order is best to glue them up? So here's my
you've got lots of observers who are going to want to help with that too.
I got my mind made up. By the time I did, they
Before
tell
you go
me.
on to that, Peter's asking, have you ever considered using an in-feed roller support over there?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've used in-feed rollers as well. I only have one good one like that. That's a nice one because it's got the 5 rollers. I have another one that has a single roller, so I will put that on the in-feed, but it's a little tipsy. But this is the arrangement, you know, and we've got our sink here. Let me do that again.
This is going to fit through the door, huh?
What door?
The kitchen. Michael's asking if you can assemble it in the kitchen or the shop.
No, I'm assembling it out here for sure, because this seam is going to be glued. So here's my miter. Okay, now this miter means that having that there means that this front piece on the L has to be the same width as my front piece running down the front of my cabinet. So this one's going to actually overlap the sink like that. Okay, so then the rest, we're going to have a seam right here, right? That's where we're going to change it up. So I was thinking of the order that I need to go here. And what I'm going to do is first I'll make sure I've jointed this edge, and then I have another plank here, and then I have my long one in the back. So I'll have no cut seam back here. I'll just have this one, and these will be all full. So the strategy I've got is to cut this miter first after these two are jointed with their next board over. So this edge will already be nicely jointed, and then I'll cut the miter and the miter here, and I'll put some biscuits in there. I'll either biscuits or dominoes and glue up that miter. So I'll have this big L glued up. And then I'll glue this board and this one to that piece. I think I might even glue these together first, and then I can cross cut a nice, smooth, clean cross cut. And then I'll clamp and glue these up to my L, my initial L. So now I have this big heavy L. And then the last thing I'll do is joint these boards. I'm going to have 3 over here, I think, just a smaller one in the back. These will be edge glued here and dominoed along here, but then I'm going to have the dog bones because I got my grain running opposite with those. Okay, so that'll just I'll probably glue these up all together. So I'm going to glue this whole thing up like it's one panel, and then I'll have already joint that edge so that it fits beautifully along that seam. And that'll be the last thing I do, is glue that onto that front edge and then put my dog bones in. So we're going to have a nice...
So you're saying dog bones, not bow ties, right? We're not going to have bow ties on it. It's
bow ties
dog
or...
bones.
No, not underneath. No, I'm using
Underneath,
this. This is what I showed last week. This will be capturing and pulling together. So it will allow for a little movement. All right? So
You're choosing flame birch. I remember you mentioned this last week. You're choosing flame birch versus curly maple because...
I like... The curly maple's okay, but usually the best curly maple is in soft maple, which is a little softer than the birch. The birch is hard and heavy. It just feels like better countertop material to me, and I prefer it. I like the color too, and it'll go well with our cherry cabinets. So
Yes, that you made, by the way.
what's that?
Cherry cabinets that you made
Oh yeah.
years ago. Did you say that you wanted to have some sap in the counter? And do you have some of that?
Well, technically, I have, you might consider it sap, but this is the red birch Well, let's look at this piece. This is pretty defined.
Yeah.
This dark is the heart, and it's considered red birch. The outer, or sap, is considered yellow birch. It's really of the same hardness, it feels like. It's good hard wood. So if you buy yellow birch, you're just buying the outer portion of the tree, or what would be considered sap. But there's such, in a lot of these trees, there can be a smaller red section. So, but technically, I think, I could be wrong about that, but almost all species, if the heart is going to be darker. If you have sapwood and it's contrasting, it's going to be lighter like this. It's going to look like this, but not all woods have that.
Danny's saying, will you joint those two edges and then trim the width of the L top? Is that what you...
Trim the wood over the L top. I'm going to do it in sequence so I don't get caught. And then it's going to be slightly oversized on the ends and the back. So I'll cut that using my template, making sure overall I'm right. And then I'll drill the holes and cut the sinkhole and route for the sinkhole.
Should take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And your thoughts on exterior edge profile, Claude's asking?
I'm not actually going to do a lot. I'm going to probably treat it like a piece of granite and just soft radius the edge. I'm not going to go, I'm going to try an 1/8 inch round over, probably just that, because it's hard enough to handle that. And I'll do one on the bottom too. So this will be overhanging like 1.25 inches in front of the face of the cabinets. So that little 1/8 inch round over front and top and bottom will be nice. Not going to do anything different than that.
Okay, and Lee's asking, are the dog bones stainless so they won't rust?
I don't think so. They're not really in a rust environment. They're going to be underneath and dry, Lord willing, unless I ever spring a leak. But yeah, they're underneath, and that's not a wet area of the countertop. All right, so let's, what I want to show you is just my method for cutting the miter. I measured out using my template. I went down the whole way, and I think it was, I'll remember when I get out here. It was 107 inches I needed to get to the corner. And then I need to add the width of my piece so I can do my return. So I came all the way out, and I've got a point marked here. Let's see. You can see I need to be this long. Can you see this? You're back on that long shot. We got this long miter right here.
Oh, there.
And then I marked the inside point. Now this is going to be my return. And see, I picked one that had a similar color. I'm not planning on matching, but it's actually going to come pretty close on the inside corner. I actually measured, it's right at this intersection there. It's 1.25 inches away. The sap and the heart line, or the red and the yellow, is 1.25 inches from this edge. So I measured the same over here, 1.25 inches, to make that point. Right, it's going to be close. And then I set my miter there to see if I can get it to almost look like a match. So these will overlay like this. This is the key inside corner, and then I will cut and join my other ones to square off there. All right, so let me show you the felder. So I should say first, in making a miter like this, you're going to want to set up some sort of fence, usually with your a good skill saw. Those track saws are awesome right now. If you have a good crosscut saw, you could do a sliding crosscut for this miter. You got to figure out the best way of doing it. It's pretty hard to do on a crosscut sled on your table saw because it's 10 feet long, and it's going to be hanging out there, and it's going to be pretty heavy, and it's just too much. So, however, if you have a slider like the Felder, this is one of those times you're just so happy to have a tool like that. And so I'm going to show you it. I don't get to share the Felder much. I know most people don't have one, but people have said, hey, you should just show that anyway now and then. And so I'm going to. And let's go on over there and I'll show you how that works. I got my miter marked out there. And then I also marked my miter like I showed you with that point. So I'm going to go there. I don't care about the length yet. I'm going to cut this to length after. I know I'm over long. So this is that little L return. It only has to be probably this long, you know. All right, so let's take the long one over first to the Felder. All right, I'm going to set it down here. Just want to show you this thing here. Now this Felder has this large fence that when it's set out, I can't really swing that. I don't want to change setups. But this fence can swing, and this is an accessory, this index system that you have here. You want to see this.
Okay.
So this fence can swing in, and it locks in these different sockets. There's a pin underneath there that references and sets it perfectly at some of the key points, you know, like for mitering various things. It gives you 11.25 if you're going to have a 16-piece circle. I mean, it's so down to 5.625 if you want 32 segments in your to be made. It's really incredible. And the thing I want you to notice mostly is the amount of space between 1 degree. It's like, if I measure that, it's almost a half an inch when you get out here between, for 1 degree. So that shows you like the tolerance that this thing has is, you know, I'll loosen this one too. If you move it, you're swinging it through 1 degree by a half an inch. So when you lock in on that 45, it's scary how accurate it is. You know, it's just really a sweet saw. And plus, it can handle these long planks that you just don't. You couldn't do this like on a crosscut sled because it's going to be out here, but then you have this little extension that you can bring out, and it's got these little plates which will give you some support for your piece if it has to be cantilevered out like that. So I'm going to lock that in. And lastly, we're going to set it up. Now, because my miter is that direction, I'm going to cut this one with it on its face like this. Is that right? Yeah. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to bring it into my fence. Now I'll slide it over. Now see this little tick mark on the table? You there? There's two right there. That's a little like cut. That's the saw curve between those two spots. Okay, so when I bring up my workpiece, I don't think you can you get the camera so you can see this as a...
Yeah, tell me where you'd like me to see.
Right here.
Okay.
I marked the inside of the miter right there. So if I align it with that line, that's going to be close, pretty darn close, right, to the saw blade. And now it wants to lift up a little bit there, but I want to make sure I'm holding it dead flat against the fence. So I've got this cam lock to hold it down on the table. And when that's locked in, I set that, it's beautiful. Now I just have to slide it along and make my miter cut. It's almost cheating, isn't it? Let me get my earphones. Let's make this cut. My safety glasses. All right, here we go. I've got the blade up pretty high, but that's okay. Right about there. Okay, let's put this back on the bench. I'm gonna go grab the other piece. Be right back.
Get you a different angle.
Okay, so here's my other piece of the L, and I drew that line coming down. So this one's cut face up. So because this one's face up and the other was face down, if there's any kind of weird little angle on the blade, it's going to correct. So I'll just set it over to that point. And again, we'll lock it in and we'll make our cut. All right, that's it. Let's bring it back over to the bench. Take a look.
Is Felder a German company, Tom?
Austrian.
Austrian.
Yeah.
SCM is Italian, right?
Yes. Okay, so come on up here to this end where we got these miters. Now that's going to be, this is actually going to be in here, right? Right on the inside here. But I'm going to keep it up here just for support so I can show you the, let's see how the miter turned out. Okay.
Did you
So
when you made the template, did you happen to check if the wall that was 90 degrees and all that stuff?
I'm not sure if the wall is, but I know that the front edge of my cabinets was close to 90.
I might have asked that wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's a little variation, I'll be slightly oversized in the back anyway. So I'll lay the template on at the end. And if I need to tweak the angle of the front, which will hardly be anything, I think that's almost certainly a 90. But the back, I'll just cut with a jigsaw or whatever. All right. So here we are. This is our miter right in here. You're like looking
There's
at
so
me.
much wood, I don't know where to focus. Sorry.
So this is how it's going to come together.
Nice. Very
So if we
nice.
get that inside point, you can see how the grain ended up looking almost like it wraps the corner on the inside.
Yeah,
So we'll have that sap at the end, and that's how I'm going to cut it.
That's great.
So I'll pull this together. You can see the pencil mark, but that seam looks really nice and tight right off the saw. Love it. So that'll get, I'm going to put domino in there, and then I'll clamp it together. I'll probably glue a sacrificial block on here or pin nail it on there so that it holds the 45 and I can put some solid clamp action right across. I'll have those at a 45, those blocks, so I can really make sure that I pull that together and get it really tight, okay?
Michael says get the shooting board out.
Get what?
Get the shooting board out.
I know, I thought of that. I was like, do I need to shoot this? But I don't
Is that
think
the
so.
Felder 700?
Yeah, let me
think
tell
that
you what it
sounds
is.
right.
This is the K700.
K700.
Yeah. You can get it with a shaper or without, but pretty amazing machine.
Yes.
All right, so are there any other questions? This is where I'm at. I'm going to be putting this together tomorrow, and we'll see where we're at.
And yes, there will be a backsplash, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be lighter. Last thing I want to show you before
Are
you
there, wait, sorry, Mark's asking if there are any bug pinholes in the board.
bugs?
Bug pinholes? I've
No,
never
I
seen
didn't have.
any.
I haven't seen
good.
any.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to do. So come on back to the bench and we'll wrap it up here. I just want to show you what I've learned about the finishing. Thank you
good.
all
Somebody
for
was asking
commenting.
about that, so.
Yeah, thank you all for commenting about the total boat and other finishing. I've looked on those websites; they're great. It did affirm to me that epoxy is a good sealer. It will go on and it will make for a good sealer. But I did just a test. I had that taped off. This is some System 3 epoxy that I have, and this is 30 minutes, so it gives you a good working time. And maybe it's an hour, I forget, but it's the medium. And I mixed it up, and it said you could thin it with either denatured alcohol or lacquer thinner. So I thinned it just a little bit and wiped it on almost like an oil varnish and let it saturate in. And then I wiped almost everything off the surface. So now it feels, almost looks like oiled wood. But I wanted to contrast and see how it looked if you, this is going to be the finish I'll put on. I'm going to use the Armor Seal over the top of this. But with the epoxy as my sealer coat, I'll feel better about that being around the sink. You know, the sink is going to be undermounted, so the wood end grain will be exposed there. So, oh yeah, I used some of this. I should use a stick, but I just want to make sure there's no gunk at the bottom.
Did you just mention what glue you're going to be using? Did I hear you talking about that?
The glue, no, no. I will be using Type-On 3 though.
Okay.
So here we are. I'm going to just wet this and see how it looks.
Is that the sample that you made for this, or did it?
Yeah, this was a little cut off, and so it's going to show the color that we're going to get.
Gosh, it's all rounded off and everything.
Yeah,
Nice.
I just bandsawed it and did a round over to see how it was going to look
Nice.
as a sample. But look
Like
at
a
that
little
curl.
little wooden toilet seat.
Are you seeing that?
Yes, that's beautiful.
So you can see the heart is not on this front piece. I think this is from the front piece. It's got a nice color. And you know what? You can hardly see the difference between the sealed and unsealed. So I think it's going to be a nice way of starting out. So that's going to seal the grain nicely. I'll let it really soak in there. And then I don't want to build the finish with that though. Just want to have it lock and seal the pores and make it really waterproof at the base level. And then we'll bring up, and I'll be wiping on or brushing on and then wiping off coats of this. I'll build up with the semi-gloss, and then I'll move to the satin probably for the last coat, just to give it a softer look. And
You mentioned earlier you're not putting a lot of effort into the underneath side, right?
right, but I am going to seal that. I'm going to seal the fully underneath with the epoxy as well. I'll make sure that everything is fully sealed to minimize wood movement as much as possible. I mean, you're going to have wood movement. You just can't stop it. So I'm accommodating for the wood movement with those dog bone pieces and also leaving a little space in the back. It'll be screwed to the under top.
And did you just say you're going to put finish on the back underside as well?
Yeah, I'm going to seal the entire underside with
That's my
epoxy,
fault, not hearing
and then I'll put some finish, a coat, at least 1 or 2 coats of the finish on there. I may end up with an extra coat on the top, so it will be completely finished and sealed.
Did the type of blade you used contribute to the joint over there coming together so well? Was that like how many teeth in the blade? Did that matter, or was it just?
You know, I forget what that exact blade is, but that's a 12-inch saw. So, and it's really, it leaves a beautiful smooth cut. I'll have to look up that information on that saw blade, what it is, but they have their own blades they sell with their saws, and that's what it is. They're beautiful saw blades, and you can have them sharpened at any kind of place. They're different than your normal blades because they have 2 extra holes in there. You have your center arbor hole and then these 2 other holes for a pin. And that's because, I don't know if you noticed it, but when I shut off that saw, the blade came to a stop much faster than typical because it has a built-in brake. It just went, and if you don't have those pins, the saw blade would come loose every time the brake would go on. It would put reverse force on the nut and the blade would come off. So you have to have those pins for that type of saw blade, but they will sharpen them at ridge carbide, just the same.
What are you going to do for the backsplash? What kind of wood is that going to be?
I'm actually going to use the same. I've got some long pieces of the flame birch. They're all yellow. There's no heart to them, so all the heart will be on the table. They're standing up in the back of the shop, getting ready to be used.
Fun.
All right.
I think I got all the questions.
Right. Wow, that ends up being longer than I
Lee
thought.
says to seal the non-glued joint between the 2 countertops.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want it to show much. It's going to be allowed to move there, but yeah, I will. I'll do a little test on that too. I don't want it to see that much, but it shouldn't be a problem to. I'll seal that end grain with epoxy, before I put it together too. So it should be good.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much again for hanging out with us. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It was nice to go down memory lane with all that's happened at the prison with those times in there with Terry, and also to share the ongoing saga of the countertop project. I am doing little video vignettes along the way of the various cuts, and I'm going to probably have to clip out what the camera lady got there to show the miter, because that was the actual miter cut that is going to be in this little video.
I'm sure we'll be getting back to you about some of the little details.
Yeah, it's going to be a short video just showing the elements and the before and
I
after.
remembered what I wanted you to mention was that, and some people have mentioned it in here, is that there are stores that the inmate pieces are available at least here in New Hampshire. So if you have this kind of program in your area, look to see if there's any stores, because you can get some really good, not just woodworking, but lots of things that they do, and at affordable prices, and contribute.
Yeah, here it's called
those programs.
Correction Creations, and they have a little store near that prison. This is the New Hampshire State Prison.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they do in other states if they have such nice programs, but like I said, there's that exhibit going on Main Street at the Furniture Masters Gallery with all just prison-made pieces that are incredible. A lot of it is results from all the training that we've done there. So it's great to be able to spend some time with you here in the shop, virtually at least. And if you do enjoy this content, be sure to like, share, and please subscribe. We love seeing if you haven't subscribed yet. And also, head on over to epicwoodworking.com to see all the content and the courses that we have there, as well as the neighborhood. That's our
membership community, yep.
Yeah, it's
I
really
like that.
awesome. So
Thanks for joining us.
all right, everyone. Thanks so much for being a part of this. We just love sharing these evenings with you. Look forward to seeing you next time, right back here on Shop Night Live. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. See you next week.